Channel 8 is proud to serve the Northwest by bringing you the following special presentation.
Good evening, I'm Tracy Berry, and welcome to Ask the Governor. This is your program, your chance to ask questions of Governor Neil Goldschmidt. And once again, we are coming to you live tonight on a statewide radio and television network. Our phone number is toll-free. It's 1-800-334-5315. We are here each month, and we hope you will take this opportunity to ask questions you have on state and local issues. Now, since our last program, Governor Goldschmidt has toured the proposed Salt Cave Dam site, has been faced with the possibility of a strike by state employees, and taken some heat for not appearing at the National Women's Political Caucus convention here in Portland. If you have questions on these issues or others, please give us a call. Our number again is toll-free. It's 1-800-334-5315. And welcome back. We are here with Governor Neil Goldschmidt, and this is your chance to ask the governor some of the questions that are on your mind. Let's take caller number 3. You are on the air. Caller number 3, are you there?
Hello?
Hello. Go right ahead with your question for the governor.
Sorry. Governor, I'm concerned about the strike. The OPEU bargaining doesn't seem to be getting any place. Is there anything that you can do to make that negotiation move along a little better?
Well, I obviously hope the negotiations will result in an agreement. I think, the same feeling everybody else does, and I think the state employees as well, that a strike is always a last resort. So let me just outline where I am. I've always supported the right of public employees to bargain, and I've always supported the right to strike. I happen to be on the side now where if they strike, it's not going to feel so comfortable, but I still believe they have the right. We're doing everything in our power to negotiate to come to an agreement. And I think what I can do at this point is to be available, which I am, frankly, at any point in time when the state bargaining team wants to see me, and to make people understand the circumstance that I think the state is in. We started a recession really in the late 70s, and until the last 9 months or so, really have been in very difficult financial shape in the state. The average Oregonian is earning $1,200 or $1,300 less than the national average. Thousands of our employees have taken wage rollbacks and are now paying part of their medical care benefits where they work. We have thousands of others that have no medical care benefits, and literally what I'm saying is suddenly in the last 9 months we have some additional revenue in the state treasury. We put $30 million in an emergency fund, which is the largest amount we've had there in some time. And then we had $1.25 million a day fire in southern Oregon, which is going to eat up a substantial amount of the monies that are there. So what I want people to understand is that this strike is in no one's interest, and I think the offer that we've made to the folks that are bargaining with us has been made in good faith, and I might add, along basically the same lines we have settled with every other single union. And Tracy, I brought a chart which I'd like to show you and the people that are watching to give them some sense of what it is that we're trying to deal with here. What the chart will show you is that we have made an offer of 3% a year over 2 years to all 17,000 of the Oregon State Public Employee Union members. In addition to that, because of actions of the legislature, we put up $23 million more for all employees, and $15.5 million of that will find its way to the Oregon State Public Employee Union people of this group we're talking about, and as it points out, 5,000 of them will get between 5 and 10%, most of them in the range of 10% for pay equity. And then an additional half of that 17,000 are going to get merit increases. Those come in 5% bites, 5% 1 year, 5% another year, and half of them over the next 2 years will get that. So if you do the math, I think people will understand, along with the commitment we've made to make sure that their medical care is covered, that we have arguments. I don't want to mean that there aren't, and I think they've got some good case points they're making, but we could settle them. But if the issue for Oregonians is there's more money there, we're just going to have to put up more to keep the workers on their jobs, it isn't going to happen. The main thing to understand is that we're on our way back. It's a long, hard struggle, and we're not going to catch up our state employees, who, by the way, also have had to take a lot of pain during this period of time. We're just not going to catch them up in a single 2-year period.
Just briefly, where are negotiations right now? Are you still negotiating?
Where they are is in a room in Salem. I talked to Fred Miller, the head of the executive department, this morning. I expect I'll talk to him when I get back to Salem tonight. We expect we'll be bargaining all the way to the end of the contract period. And I, by the way, want to say to you, I think the Oregon State Public Employees Union have bargained in good faith. Anybody who suggests they're the problem in the sense that they're not willing to bargain, they're not willing to argue, they're not willing to make their case. Wrong. I think Alice Dale, who represents them at the bargaining table, along with their president and their board, and their economist, who I think is one of the best employees in the entire state for anybody, are in there rocking them and socking them. And, you know, we're on the other side of it, and I think our people, Karen Roach, and the people who are bargaining for us are doing the same. But it's really in the public's interest, and I think in our state employees' interest, that we get this settled and we get on, because we are really, I think, in a scrap to turn this state around, and these employees are a very important part of it.
Strike date, September 16th, for those who are keeping track.
This is News 8 at 11, where news and information come first. Reported by Steve Knight. Weather with Jeff Anderson. And Joe Becker with sports. And now, News 8 at 11.
A state workers' strike deadline looms just 2 days away. Governor Neil Goldschmidt tonight on KGW's Ask the Governor defends the state's latest wage offer. A union leader denounces the offer and the defense as baloney. Contract talks between the state and the Oregon Public Employees Union ended tonight after 6 hours. The union says no progress was made. The governor says the state's salary offer plus pay equity increases and merit raises make a generous package.
This strike is in no one's interest, and I think the offer that we've made to the folks that are bargaining with us has been made in good faith, and I might add, along basically the same lines we have settled with every other single union.
More than 16,000 state workers vow to walk off their jobs 1 minute after midnight Wednesday morning if a satisfactory settlement isn't agreed upon.
This is News 8 at 5, where news and information come first. Reported by Pete Schulberg, Tracy Berry, meteorologist Jim Little with up-to-the-minute forecast, and Scott Lynn with the latest in sports. And now, News 8 at 5.
Well, with a strike deadline of Wednesday hanging overhead, representatives of the Oregon Public Employees Union and the state are back at the bargaining table today trying to hammer out a contract.
Casey Cowan has been following the negotiations and joins us now live from our news bureau in Salem. Any progress today, Casey?
Well, Pete, not much, despite a full day's work at the bargaining table. With major issues still unresolved, both the state and OPEU are working very hard to reach some sort of settlement, and that means they are now preparing to work late into the night or even early morning. State Conciliator John Vail ordered both sides into the first marathon bargaining session since negotiations began on the contract. The Oregon Public Employees Union has already set up a strike headquarters in Salem and has trained picket captains. All indications that union leaders are not very optimistic that a settlement will be reached before Wednesday's strike deadline.
We will certainly do everything we can to reach a settlement, but it'll be difficult.
At the start of Monday's session, there were still some 30 issues left on the table. Chief negotiator for the state, Darlene Livermore, says the state and the union are farther apart on some issues than others.
It's a matter of whether or not we can accommodate some of the major issues that the union has in the right combination of things in terms of whether we can get there. If it's their feeling that they need to have all of the things that are still outstanding, then that's a whole other question.
If a strike is called, some 16,000 state employees could walk off their jobs, affecting every state department. Oregon officials have said that management will keep operations going during a strike. John Vail is hoping that plan won't have to go into effect.
I'm going to keep them here until I hope we get an agreement.
Today. So you've got to be a little optimistic then.
Well, no, but they don't have much time left. Well,
And with John Vail promising to keep them there until an agreement is reached, both sides are preparing to have late night to early morning, practically round-the-clock negotiations. Both sides agree that the bargaining probably will go right up to the 11th hour, and they certainly don't expect any sort of settlement tonight. Pete, Tracy?
Well, Casey, I know it's probably difficult to tell how much is posturing and how much is reality down there at this point, but you get a feel for how ready the union is to go on strike?
The union is very ready to go on strike. Not only has the union trained picket captains, they have set up 9 strike headquarters around the state, and furthermore, they've distributed a lot of information to all their members on their strike plan, their strike strategy, which includes targeting certain areas of government for, as they put it, maximum disruption of work. So they are very definitely ready to walk out.
Okay, thank you very much, Casey. As the negotiations continue,
television center in Portland for Oregon and Southwest Washington. This is Channel 2 News at 6:30.
Good evening. I'm Paul Lindman. Melissa Mills is off tonight. Nearly 17,000 state employees are set to go on strike effective midnight tonight. Talks broke off 2 hours ago, with both sides still far apart on the issues. Mark Hass has been following the developments from Salem. Mark, what can you tell us?
Well, Paul, the union says it will go on strike as of midnight. That means nearly 17,000 employees from 45 different agencies in all corners of Oregon will walk off the job in a little over 5 hours. It was no surprise to negotiators who have been at the bargaining table for weeks with virtually no movement on the key issues of salaries, insurance, and workloads. Talks broke off when the federal mediator suggested the two sides could not meet tonight's strike deadline.
The state is going to be impacted substantially just by virtue of the very size of our organization and the support we have among our membership. There will be that impact on services. There will be a desire, I would assume, on the part of both parties to see if a settlement can be reached. The mediation service intends to contact both the state and the union tomorrow morning and hopefully to get the parties back together on Thursday.
We had hoped we could stay at the bargaining table and reach a solution. That didn't appear possible. So to that extent, we're frustrated. We're sorry to see this come to pass. State government will be different, but it'll be state government will continue to operate the essential functions of state government.
Governor Goldschmidt continued his hardline stance. In a release tonight, he said the state of Oregon is not an open checkbook. Taxpayers throughout Oregon, many of whom have had pay cuts in recent years, will not support the OPEU demands. In the meantime, the union is preparing for a strike at 8 strike headquarters located around the state, which were set up about 2 weeks ago. Those state facilities which will feel the threat and pinch of a strike most immediately are those which operate on a 24-hour basis. For example, state mental hospitals, way stations on the freeways, and some people who work for state prisons, although not corrections guards because they are prohibited by law from going on strike. Incidentally, state police are not affected. They have their own union, and they settled several months ago.
Mark, is the state likely to hire temporary employees?
Well, in some meetings that are set to begin in a few moments, state officials say that is one of the options. However, before that, they are considering the concept of contracting out some services on a temporary basis, but they say they have not ruled out the question of hiring temporary replacements.
Okay, Mark, thank you very much. And Mark will have further details tonight at 11 o'clock.
This is News 8 at 5, where news and information come first. Reported by Pete Schulberg, Tracy Berry, meteorologist Jim Little with up-to-the-minute forecast, and Scott Lynn with the latest in sports. And now, News 8 at 5.
A midnight strike by 16,000 state workers is almost a certainty tonight.
Less than an hour ago, talks between the state and the employees broke off. Casey Cowan is standing by live at negotiation headquarters in Salem with the latest. Casey, what happened?
Well, Tracy and Pete, behind me is the door behind which the state and the union were meeting. I say were because at exactly 4:15, the Oregon Public Employees Union representatives walked away from the bargaining table saying there just wasn't enough money on the table. The state is not flexible on the salaries, so the union said they had no choice but to walk away. Now, the walkout ended any hopes that existed this morning that there might be a settlement before tonight's strike deadline.
Like this, I haven't had enough sleep to wake up.
None of the people involved in the negotiations between the state and the Oregon Public Employees Union got much sleep Monday night. Talks went on until 2 in the morning before both sides went home with little to show for their efforts. Arriving for the next session at 10 a.m., neither side was terribly optimistic that a settlement could be reached. The union is prepared to walk out. Last night at strike headquarters, volunteers were calling union members to make sure everyone knows what's going on.
We need members to pick at their own work sites at times they would usually be at work.
The state says it is ready as well, although it has never had to actually deal with nearly 17,000 workers going out on strike.
All agencies have updated their strike plans, have gone through decisions about what's essential and what's not, have gone through scenarios about what they would do if a certain number of employees was on strike and a certain number was not on strike. So we're as ready as we'll ever be. We're not hoping that we have to test those plans, however.
The union says it is still far from an agreement with the state and that it is the state that must make the move towards a settlement. The union has gone as far as it can.
We believe our proposals are very reasonable. We believe that we have made significant movement throughout the negotiations, a movement, frankly, that has not been in any respect equaled by the state. And there is very, very little movement left that we can make.
As if to bring home the point that union members are ready to strike, OPEU held a rally outside the Capitol.
What are we doing? We're going to strike! All right. Who are we going to strike? We're going to strike the state! It's the time to do it. Strike the state! Strike the state! Strike the state!
Then the group marched into the executive building where members chanted union slogans for 5 minutes.
Hey, Neil, take a hit! We want more than 2%! Hey, Neil, take a hit! We want more than 2%! Hey, Neil, take a hit! We want more than 2%!
Now, nearly every agency in the state will be affected in one way or another by this strike if the state workers do indeed strike. But the three biggest divisions are the ones that you'll notice first: Adult and Family Services, the Employment Division, and Transportation. Walden Kirsch has the rundown.
The Motor Vehicles Division will be steering a difficult course in the event of a strike. The State Transportation Department will be the largest hit agency in the state. Expect longer waits at the DMV as managers take over, scattered office closures, and if you just turned 16 and are looking forward to getting your license...
Happy birthday.
Best wishes, and that's it, though. The DMV will not be offering driver's tests if OPEU members walk off the job. At the Adult and Family Services Division, there will be service cutbacks, and 3 metropolitan area offices will be shut entirely. AFS offices in Northeast, North, and Southeast Portland will close if there is a strike.
Yeah, I think that it's really a shame that something like that would have to happen, because there's a lot of people out there who really need the assistance.
We hope that we can maintain a sense of calm for our clients and run business as best we can. I think the most important message I'd like to give out to people is that it will not be business as usual.
Officials are saying they will take on no new assistance cases except dire emergencies. Still, the agency that last month doled out $38 million is promising tonight that welfare checks will be out on time. The State Employment Division is not making that promise, however. The 54,000 Oregonians who depend on the division for unemployment checks may see their money delayed.
Maybe a day or two, and we'd ask the public to be patient with us. We will get them out just as promptly as we can.
I don't think it's anything that anybody's looking forward to. Public management employees, it's a difficult time.
Statewide public workers' strikes are not common in America. There have only been 4 in the last decade. If the Oregon strike does go ahead, it will be the largest in the nation in half a dozen years. I'm Walden Kirsch, News 8.
And with me now is Alice Dale, the executive director of OPEU. You'd like to correct something. The state told us that you had walked away from the table, and you say that's not right.
No, that's not true at all. We have been in intense negotiations over the last several days in an effort to reach a settlement. We've been meeting with the mediators. There has been essentially shuttle diplomacy between the 2 bargaining teams. The mediators concluded that it was clear we could not reach any agreement and that we couldn't make any more movement today either. And so the parties met at the request of the mediators, and at the request of the mediators, we are now on our own.
Now, there are some flyers going around saying that if indeed there is a strike, it will be an illegal strike. Can you respond to that?
Yes, I can. I think it's very important that the public and certainly our employees understand that the state is doing all sorts of desperate measures in an effort to impair the strike. They won't settle the contract, but they are throwing out all sorts of assertions of illegality in an effort to discourage employees from taking self-help measures to engage in a strike. They are claiming not only that our contract extension, which is not an uncommon thing to enter into in negotiations, now makes our strike illegal. We complied with the 10-day statutory notice of our intent to strike. In addition, they're maintaining we don't represent employees in the Department of Insurance and Finance. We've represented these employees as workers' compensation since 1966. They told these employees that they cannot strike.
So this is a case of some dirty tricks, and as far as you're concerned, there is going to be a strike.
There will be a strike tonight at midnight. We have had all sorts of action on the part of the state of late in an effort to discourage employees from taking a strike to secure a good contract.
Okay, thank you very much. Alice Dale, Executive Director of Oregon Public Employees Union. Back to you. All right, Casey, just let me make it clear here. From the employees' point of view, it is the negotiators that have called off this session.
That's correct, yes.
All right.
Thank you very much, Casey. Strike is set for midnight tonight by state employees.
I'm Lars Larson, sitting in for Gary Hill.
And I'm Kim Singer. In the news tonight, talks between the state and its largest labor union are called off. Thousands of state workers are now set to strike tonight.
Oregon Supreme Court rules that drunk driving roadblocks are unconstitutional.
Senate confirmation hearings for Supreme Court nominee Robert Bork begin.
And Portland students get a chance to take part in a question and answer session with the Pope. The 10 o'clock news is next.
Good evening, everybody. The 16,500 members of the state of Oregon's biggest labor union are ready to go on strike at midnight. Talks broke off between the state and the Oregon Public Employees Union this afternoon, and picket lines are being readied right now for a midnight walkout. Union officials left the table this afternoon after a final round of negotiating. No agreements were reached on any of the major money issues, and no new talks have been set. Trish Nyworth has the very latest.
Months of intensive talks were over this afternoon at 4:15, and state negotiators showed how hopeless the situation had become by simply going home.
We would have been prepared to go farther, but it apparently is not fruitful to do so. As I understand it, what was said, that there just wasn't enough money on the table.
What brought them to loggerheads was their respective final proposals. The state sticking to its 3% salary increase in January, the union asking for what it described as a flexible 4.5%. Being so far apart on this and the remaining 4 issues made any attempt to work up to the midnight strike deadline fruitless.
And the state of Oregon thinks it's fine to offer them a wage proposal that doesn't even begin to meet the cost of living, is half what they put in their own budgets for inflationary factors, and is a fraction of what they gave to a number of their management service employees. That is unfair, and this union will not continue in any manner to tolerate that.
While Governor Goldschmidt put out a statement saying he supports the union's right to strike, his executive department was contending the strike would be illegal because the union hadn't provided adequate notice. Union officials have already given their members a pep talk to not be intimidated by what they consider scare tactics by the state. And given the mood here tonight at strike headquarters, they needn't worry about motivating their members. Dale came to strike headquarters to boost the spirits of some of the 16,500 employees represented and to calm their fears.
We have complied with every statutory requirement we have to strike. We went through negotiations, we went through mediation, we went through fact-finding, we went through our 30-day cooling-off period, and we filed our 10-day strike notice.
Pickets are being planned tonight for the state's 24-hour institutions, and they'll be there to greet the governor's arrival at work tomorrow, who members tonight were laying the ultimate blame on for a walkout they say they never wanted.
He's the captain of the ship. Somewhere along the line, I guess he has some responsibility as to how it was conducted.
When he was running for governor, he gave us the opinion that he was backing labor and he was backing us. And now that it comes push down to shove, he's not cooperating the way he gave us the impression he would.
In Salem, Trish Nyworth, the 10 o'clock news.
KOIN-TV, Portland, Vancouver, the news station for Oregon and Southwest Washington, where people make the difference. Like Donna Hughes, Shirley Hancock, Miles Musio with weather, and Rick Metzger Sports. Newsroom 6 at 11.
Good evening. 1 hour from now, history will be made in Oregon. The state will be hit with its first major public employee strike.
There is no contract, so as threatened, some 16,000 members of the Oregon Public Employees Union are preparing tonight to leave their jobs.
Senior correspondent Chuck Diamond is in Salem at strike headquarters. And Chuck, where will we see the first effects of the strike?
Mike and Shirley, that's the big question tonight, and look for that to be the first big issue of this strike. I'm at strike headquarters here in Salem where those kinds of plans are being made. What I'm being told here is that this is going to be a tactical strike, not a general strike where all 16 or 17,000 members of OPEU walk off the job on unison, but rather the union is going to target selected places where workers will walk off the job. Now, the state questions the legality of that kind of strike. The union counters that they're perfectly comfortable with the legality of that kind of approach. It's believed among the first targets will be Oregon State Hospital for the Mentally Ill and Damaged Psychiatric Hospital. A huge majority of the workers in both those institutions are members of the Oregon Public Employees Union. Now, although many thought that this situation would never come to this, to a strike, it was clear today that no progress was being made at the table.
Hey, Neil, take a hit. We want more than 2%.
At a noon rally that ended up inside the state executive office building, you could tell the troops were not happy. State and union negotiators met at the table throughout the day, but there were many unresolved issues, including 5 considered major. At 4:15, the union pulled out.
What was said, that there just wasn't enough money on the table, and it appears that this now sets up the prospect for the effective time of the strike, which is 12:01 a.m. this morning.
Union leader Alice Dale made it even more explicit.
The gap. The state will not move on the major issues. They will not agree to decent salary increase. They will not agree to fully paid health insurance. We have been fighting pay equity for a number of years, and they won't agree to a reasonable pay equity proposal. So we are loggerheads. We are out on strike.
Now, there is an increasing feeling among union members and among union leaders that the responsibility for the strike is on the shoulders of Governor Neil Goldschmidt. The state has offered basically a 3% salary increase. The union is seeking a 4.5% salary increase. The suggestion on the part of the union is that the governor could find the money to make up that difference if he really wanted to. The governor has not spoken to us personally on this or in person. Rather, he issued a written news release this afternoon in which he suggested that the state contract offer is, in his opinion, a fair one, and in standing by it, he is looking out for the interests of Oregon taxpayers, Mike and Shirley.
Chuck, has a date been set for resuming talks?
It has not at this point. I'm told that that really is up to the state mediator to call both sides back together. He has nothing in mind at this point that we know of, although the speculation is that probably Thursday would be the earliest that that would happen.
Thank you, Chuck. We'll hear from you tomorrow. Chuck Diamond reporting from strike headquarters in Salem.